Hey, GW coming to you live. I know I haven't been on in a couple of weeks, or recently, rather not a couple of weeks. Um, there's a reason for that. We had a death in the family, and I really didn't feel like getting on here. I mean, I just didn't feel it, guys. And it was pretty hard. My wife is still dealing with it. My wife's aunt passed away, and I know some of you guys know what's going on. Um, but when things like that happen, I really don't feel like doing much of anything. In fact, you don't feel like communicating with the rest of the world. You just feel like being there for the person that needs it, needs your support, and basically just you don't feel like doing anything. Now, coupled with that, with the fact that when my uncle was come down from Maine, and so I spent some time with him. And guys, I know you guys don't know him, but he's an awesome cat. He's a retired or semi-retired social worker. He used to be in the Air Force, and he's somebody that you can really talk movies with all day long. You know, he knows every vampire movie. He knows monsters. He's on my level, guys, is what I'm saying. In fact, he told me whenever I was really little about a movie that I checked out, which was a pretty nasty little piece of film. It was called Clown House, and it was about a kid who's afraid of clowns goes to the circus, and then inmates dressed up in a clown suit terrorize the house that he lives in. And it was a pretty neat piece of film. That film is also controversial because one of the lead characters was also a known sexual predator, offender, child molester, something or other. I don't know. There was some kind of thing. You guys can look it up. But anyway, so I stayed away from movies because I was dealing with, spending time with him, and I was also dealing with this funeral. And believe me, guys, funerals are never fun. They actually suck because they constantly remind us how terrible or how emotional filled life can be. And I could go on all day about that, but I'm not going to, because you guys tune into my channel because you guys want to know about horror films. Well, I got back up on the movie review chair as I felt like, it was time I come out of my shell. So I watched a movie from the 80s that some of you guys may know about, and some of you guys probably have never heard of a day in your life. It's called Wolfen. And it's a 1980s, it's a 1981 horror film with a lot of substance. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in here. It's directed by Michael Wadley. And believe it or not, it was based on a novel written by Whitley Strieber. Now, that name may or may not sound familiar. Whitley Strieber is an American author who had encounters with aliens. In fact, Christopher Walken played him in the book that he wrote about his experiences, and it was called Communion. And if you guys haven't seen that film, that is an awesome film about alien abduction and Whitley Strieber's experiences with said aliens. And he's been very vocal about it. But this story actually is a very, very intricate one. It's a very sophisticated horror movie. And when I say that, I don't mean boring. So don't get the wrong idea when I say that. It's about a building project in New York City, in the slums of New York City, that unleashes an evil spirit in the form of a pack of wolves. And I know that premise might seem corny, but it's handled very seriously in this. So what happens is these wolves go after first of all, the people that are in charge of the project, they're too rich. They're too rich, millionaire tycoon types. They're called the Vander Beeks, and they're the head of the project. They're the first two that get murdered. And when they get murdered, the police, the forensics units, and all these guys converge on the crime scene, and they try to figure out, was this a murder? Was this, you know, was this an execution? Was this done by drug dealers? Was it done by this, that, and the other thing? And they never can find a motive. So basically, Albert Fisher plays a New York City detective. And he basically finds out that there is a long Indian legend about wolves that protect their hunting ground. And one of the things that makes this film interesting, guys, is back in 1981, dust flying around the room. Back in 1981, they were perfecting the it's called a Lunoma crane and a Steadicam. And basically what this film does very well is it simulates the vision through the eyes of the wolves. And it's done very, very well done. It's done so good that it gives you the feeling that you're seeing what an actual wolf would see. Rounding out the cast of this movie is Gregory Hines, who plays I don't want to say pathologist, but a forensics sort of person, a mortician, if you will, who figures out why people die. He's the one that goes and sees the cause of death. This film also features an early role from famous actor Edward James Olmos. He's almost unrecognizable. He probably did this film when he was 20, 25, I would guess. And it's interesting because you watch this film, excuse me, and the one thing that you will come away with at the end, Edward James Olmos obviously belongs to a pack of Indians that, are the last sort of their bloodline, and they work on high wire suspension bridges. And there's a conversation between Albert Finney's character and Edward James Olmos' character about shape shifting. And at the end of the movie, you never really are quite sure if the wolves are wolves or if they are the pack of Indians that you see throughout the movie. And it left you with a question mark. And it was a good question mark because it makes you think about it. So, let's see. Basically, this film is very interesting, like I said, for a couple of reasons. One, we get to see Edward James Olmos's, what I just mentioned, the birth of one of his earliest roles. And there is a scene in here that's a hoot. If you guys don't like Edward James Olmos or like seeing him act goofy, which this is a rare occurrence in his roles because he does everything super seriously, and guys, he's a great actor. But in one scene, he is naked down by the shores of New York, running around like a wolf. And it's done tongue-in-cheek, but there's also a sort of mysterious, serious level about it. And it's pretty interesting. So you don't know, again, the question that the movie throws at you is are they really shapeshifters? Or are they just Indians that are a little bit out of it? The wolf effects are done very, very well. They actually used real live wolves, and there's an awesome white looking wolf at the end, and he must be the leader. They don't really go into this, but he's a pretty cool thing to look at. As far as gore goes, there are some savage attacks, Um, One of the goriest scenes in this movie comes toward the end of the movie, where a wolf not only decapitates an NYC detective, but also slashes his hand right off his forearm there. Not a very violent, bloody movie, but more of a supernatural creature film without all the hokey jokey crap. And I say that because it's done in a very serious tone, and Whitley Strieber actually presents it as if it were real, like if it was actually happening. So it's not exaggerated, is what I'm saying. The movie runs just under 2 hours, and it's pretty rare. I remember seeing bits of this movie on, I think, 53 or 22 whenever I was really little, and there was a scene that always stuck out with me, where a wolf jumps through a church window, and it's just one of those things that you see as a kid and you never forget it. Gregory Hines, his character is pretty much a low-key, sort of goofy sidekick, but serious in most respects. And the film actually works. The problem is I think the film isn't well known, and I think it got pushed under the radar because it's not a bloodbath. Do you know what I mean? It's not like where the wolves kill everything in sight, terrorize New York City. I mean, that just don't happen. But it is worth checking out because it's rare. It's a very good movie as far as werewolf movies go. And the end of it poses a question right out of Cannibal Holocaust. You know, are we the savages because we kill animals, or are animals savage, you know, by nature? It's a pretty interesting film. Very long, but you have to pay attention to it. And it's a rare find in horror these days that, you know, you can tell a great story, still have the attacks, the maulings, the gore, and everything fits perfectly. And honestly, Wolfen is a movie that, if you haven't seen it, I think you should owe it to yourself to check out. Now, there is no real official DVD of it. So Warner Brothers, what they do is, this is an Orion picture. Orion Studios went bankrupt years and years ago. They put out RoboCop, and they put out a bunch of other films. So they went bankrupt. So what they did was, when Warner Brothers acquired Orion Pictures, they came out with what they call the Archive Collection. Those are movies that they feel that Orion had a lot of potential with, so they've been putting them out on Blu-ray. So Wolfen was one, Innocent Blood was another one. You know, I don't think Warner Brothers had a lot of... They didn't think horror was going to be this good, but these transfers are pretty good, and it would beat any VHS copy there is. Also, I want to tell you about another horror film that I watched, and it's on Shudder right now. You guys can check it out. It's called Tombs of the Blind Dead. Now, this film, there are 4 of them. There's Tombs of the Blind Dead, Return of the Blind Dead, The Ghost Galleon, and Night of the Seagulls. And basically, they are Spanish zombie films, guys. So they're all going to be subtitled. They are directed and written by a guy named Armando de... I guess I'm saying this right, is Osorio. Now, the premise of these movies are very, very interesting. The only problem is they are a bit slow in nature, but they capture a lot of things most modern horror films and zombie movies do not. They capture beautiful scenery, and even looking at a dilapidated church in this film is a little creepy. You know nothing may go on, but you're still creeped out by it. So in these movies, what happens is there's a sect of Templar Knights who discovered how to become immortal, drinking the blood of virgins. So the story goes, as these knights sacrificed a bunch of virgins. They learned the trick of immortality, and then they are tried and hung for their crimes. And what happens is birds peck out their eyes. So now you have zombie Templar knights coming back from the grave. And the one thing that the director does good is that when the zombies are on the screen and the set pieces he puts them in, he makes them look amazing. I mean, it looks like one of the best zombie movies ever made. However, the story is somewhat predictable because you have 4 or 5 people stumble into their cemetery or their church or their compound, whatever you'd like to call it, and these zombies hunt by sound. And it's a very, very cool concept. And it captures the vibe of like Burial Ground or Night of the Living Dead or something like that with the zombies. The makeup is done so good, and a couple of these zombies even ride a horse in the film, which is really cool. It reminds you of the Black Knights and Elden Ring, kind of gives you that sort of vibe. But the ending of the first film is something that once you see it, you're going to want to watch the second one. There is a fair amount of gore and there is a fair amount of nudity in the first film. The special effects for the gore are not that great, but they are watchable, and for the time frame, and I guess for what the director had to use, it was very well done. And I've always heard about these. You know, you always look these things up, and it's like Blind Dead set, you know, like $450 and this and that. So I was able to get a copy, not the $450 one, but I was actually able to watch them. My buddy and longtime horror mentor of mine, Matt Campbell, told me about these. So I figured, you know, I'll check these out. Anything he recommends, you know, I'll check out. He's got a sick mind like me. So I checked them out, and honestly, I could not stop watching this. And a lot of critics will say this zombie film series are boring. Only when the nights come on, they're great, but you have to watch the whole thing. You have to get the experience. Because if you just cut in and out of a room when the end comes, it's not going to have the impact that it does. And it's a very well done Spanish horror film, and you need to check it out. It's on Shudder, and I know it's not going to be for everybody because it is subtitled. If you can get past that, you're looking at one of probably the best zombie movies and most original zombie movies there is. And like I said, the key point is when the zombies come out, they look fantastic. I mean, seriously. They could probably put to rest any other zombie movie in the 70s, except for maybe, like I said, Burial Ground and a few others. It is a very cool zombie movie. It's very slow, and sometimes the only regret about the movie is it takes too long, but it builds on story. And that's something, again, you don't find in zombie movies, because most zombie movies, zombies are already walking around, and boom, it's a survival thing. So, if you get a chance, you can order the movies separately on Amazon. I really like them. But like I said, Tombs of the Blind Dead is streaming now on Shudder. The next one will be Return of the Blind Dead, then The Ghost Galleon, and then Night of the Seagulls, which then ends the 4-movie arc of the Blind Dead. And I can't say enough about these movies. I mean, they are pretty good. They're cheesy, they're corny, they're great, they're suspenseful. They're everything that you would want out of a horror movie. There is one spot, though, guys, I'm going to talk about, because I know somebody who saw these movies are going to tell me about it. There's a scene where a girl gets savagely attacked and then comes back later as a zombie. And one of the cool things is that was the only victim you see that happen to. You know, which is interesting. But she is killed by fire, and the fire effect, I know, sometimes to look past cheap effects, that's fine. But the fire effect in her death is really not that incredible. So I know people are going to give me crap about that and say, Greg, this scene makes the movie look stupid. Actually, it doesn't. Because considering what they had to work with back then and what they were trying to go with, if you can look past that and then look at an original zombie sort of story, then you're fine. Now, a lot of people complain the Ghost Galleon is the most boring of all movies, but some people think it's the most creative because it takes place on a ship. So cannot wait to check this out. Even though if it's boring, the makeup is pretty awesome. And it looks like it's the same design in every movie. So the director didn't deviate or change the looks of the zombies. But before you dive into 2, 3, and 4, definitely give Tombs of the Blind Dead a try. If you like 70s, early 70s sort of films, and you like zombies, it's a no-brainer. It's just a slow movie at times, but it makes up for it. I found it really entertaining. I honestly did. So definitely give it a whirl. These films, I would buy them separately unless you have about $400 to drop on the coffin edition, but that's just me. And what else? There was something else. That was about it that I know of, guys. But yeah, I just wanted to apologize for not being on here, because like I said, a funeral and emotions, you just kind of get numb when things happen. And I took it, I think, a little bit harder than my wife. But then again, I couldn't judge her emotions. But, people do understand. And a lot of times, I didn't want to let you guys, the viewers, down. And I didn't want to, just take off and everything. I wanted to explain myself. And I just, like I said, I was busy. It was bittersweet. I said I spent time with my uncle, and then I had to go to the funeral at the same time he was up from vacation, guys. So I just didn't feel like doing much of anything. I didn't even feel like getting drunk, and that's a rarity. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed those recommendations, and definitely check out Wolfen. And like I said, Tombs of the Blind Dead, very cool zombie film. And I'm just sorry I made you guys wait, and I hope you check those out, and I hope you enjoy them. And we'll be back next week for some more reviews. I'm thinking about changing this title from Movie Talk to The Morning Massacre, because I do everything early in the morning, and Movie Talk just seems like it's not a good fit. But I'm sure you can still find me on my channel. Alright, guys, till next time.